The girl no one saw. The city never noticed girls like Liana. People saw her coat, too thin for winter. They saw her shoes, worn at the heels. They saw her sitting near the subway entrance with a small paper cup and eyes that tried not to look hopeless. But they never really saw her. At 22, Liana had mastered the art of being invisible. Invisible girls didn't get robbed. Invisible girls didn't get harassed as often. Invisible girls survived. She slept in the corner of an abandoned laundromat 3 streets from the downtown hospital. During the day, she worked cleaning tables at a 24-hour diner where customers snapped their fingers at her like she was part of the furniture. "Hey, homeless girl," her manager Rick would say loudly whenever he wanted to embarrass her. "Smile more. You scare the paying customers." She always smiled. Because rent cost money. Because shelters were full. Because surviving meant swallowing pride like bitter medicine. That night, the air was cruel. Wind cut through the alleyways like knives, carrying the promise of snow. Liana hugged herself as she walked back from her late shift, her backpack bouncing lightly against her shoulders, everything she owned inside it. She took the longer road home because it passed the bakery dumpster. Sometimes they threw out bread that was still good. That's when she saw the black car. It sat crooked near the old bridge, driver's door open, headlights still on. One tire slowly spun in the icy slush, whining. Liana froze. Trouble wore many shapes. She had learned to recognize most of them. But then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the wind or traffic. A groan. Low. Pained. Human. Her feet moved before fear could argue. "Hello?" she called softly, stepping closer. "Is someone there?" She found him half in the snow beside the car. He looked wrong. Not injured wrong. Not drunk wrong. Otherworldly wrong. Tall. Broad shoulders under a torn black coat. Dark hair matted with frost. His skin pale, not sick pale, but moonlight pale, like he had never known the sun. Blood stained the snow beneath him. Liana dropped to her knees instantly. "Oh my God, hey, can you hear me?" His eyes snapped open. They weren't brown. They weren't blue. They were silver. Not gray. Silver. Like metal catching light. For a second, she couldn't breathe. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was strong, too strong for someone bleeding in the snow. "Go," he rasped. His voice was deep, strained, like it hurt to speak. "You must leave." "I'm not leaving you," she said, already pulling off her scarf to press against the wound at his side. "You're bleeding." At the touch, he flinched, not from pain. From her warmth. His jaw tightened. His eyes squeezed shut like he was fighting something inside himself. "Why, would you help me?" he asked through clenched teeth. Liana blinked at him. "Because you're hurt." "That is not enough reason," he said. "It is for me." Something shifted in his expression. Confusion. Shock. Almost wonder. Headlights appeared at the far end of the bridge. 3 black SUVs. They moved slowly. Deliberately. Liana felt it instantly, the way prey feels a predator's gaze. The man in the snow did too. "They found me," he murmured. "Who?" His silver eyes met hers, and for a split second, she saw something ancient and terrifying behind them. "Monsters," he said quietly. "Worse than me." Her heart should have told her to run. Instead, she slid her arm under his shoulders. "Can you stand?" His eyes widened. "Girl, you don't understand." "Can you stand?" A pause. Then, with visible effort, he nodded once. She hauled him up, nearly collapsing under his weight, and dragged him toward the shadows beneath the bridge supports just as the SUVs rolled past. Men got out. All dressed in black. All carrying silver weapons that glinted under the streetlights. They scanned the area like hunters who knew their prey was near. Liana held her breath, pressed against the stranger's cold body. His arm was around her shoulders now, but not for support. To keep himself from reaching for her throat. She could feel it. The restraint. The battle inside him. His breath brushed her ear. "Your heart, it's loud." "Sorry," she whispered, terrified but trying to joke. "I get nervous." Something that might have been a broken laugh left him. Minutes passed. The men eventually returned to their vehicles and drove off. Silence returned to the bridge. Liana sagged in relief. Okay, they're gone." "You should have left me," he said. "Too late now." She helped him sit against the cold concrete pillar. Up close, she saw the wound clearly, a deep slash across his side. But the blood. It was darker than normal. Almost black. "You need a hospital," she said. "I cannot go to a hospital." "Why?" "Because," he said, voice low and heavy with truth, "I am not human." Liana stared at him. She expected laughter. A prank. Delirium. Instead, she saw his fangs slide into view when he spoke. Not huge. Not monstrous. But very, very real. Her breath caught. Still. She didn't move away. "You're a vampire?" she asked quietly. "Yes." A long silence stretched between them. Snow began to fall. Soft. Quiet. "I don't care," she said finally, pressing her scarf harder against his wound. "You're still bleeding." For the first time in centuries, the Vampire King, ruler of the Night Court, feared by armies, hunted by enemies, had no words. No one had touched him with kindness in over 200 years. No one had looked at him like he was worth saving. And the girl who did smelled like hunger. Like cold nights. Like survival. She was the weakest creature in the city. And the bravest. "What is your name?" he asked softly. "Liana." He studied her like she was something precious. "Liana," he repeated, as if committing it to eternity. In the distance, thunder rolled. A storm was coming. But under the bridge, wrapped in falling snow and shared warmth, something else had begun. Something older than kingdoms. Something stronger than fear. The Vampire King had been hunted. Betrayed. Nearly killed. But the moment this homeless human girl chose to help him, the world had made a mistake. Because now, he would never stop protecting her. The king in hiding. The snow didn't stop. It fell heavier, thicker, swallowing the bridge in white silence as if the world itself wanted to hide what had just happened. Liana's hands were numb, her scarf soaked with dark blood that didn't look human no matter how much she tried to convince herself otherwise. "We can't stay here," she whispered. "They might come back." The man, the vampire, the king, though she didn't know that yet, was watching her with an intensity that made her pulse flutter. "You should leave me," he said again, weaker now. "Those hunters track by scent. If they catch yours on me." "Too late," she said, trying to pull him to his feet again. "You already ruined my normal night. Now you have to survive." Something almost like amusement flickered in his silver eyes. "You are either very brave," he murmured, "or very foolish." "Both," she muttered. "Can you walk?" This time, he didn't argue. He leaned on her, heavy and cold, as they moved away from the bridge and into the maze of back streets. Every step looked like it cost him effort. His breathing was shallow, controlled, like he was constantly holding himself back. From her. From her blood. She noticed. And she trusted him anyway. Candle the only place she had. 20 minutes later, they reached the abandoned laundromat. The windows were boarded. The sign had fallen years ago. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old detergent. "This is where you live?" he asked quietly as she pushed the door shut behind them. "For now." His gaze swept the small nest she'd made in the corner: blankets, a backpack, a cracked thermos. Something dark moved behind his eyes. Not hunger. Fury. "Who did this to you?" he asked. She shrugged. "Life?" She helped him sit against the wall. Up close, he looked worse. The wound in his side wasn't healing fast enough. His skin had lost what little color it had. "You said you can't go to a hospital," she said, kneeling beside him. "So what do you need?" His jaw tightened. "Blood." The word hung between them. Liana swallowed. "From anyone?" "Yes. But you haven't taken mine," she said softly. "Even when we were hiding." His eyes snapped to hers. "You are under my protection." She blinked. "I didn't agree to that. You helped me. That is enough." She let out a shaky breath that almost turned into a laugh. "You're a very dramatic person, you know that?" "I am a king," he said simply. She stared at him. "Of what?" "Of the Noctis court. Of the Eastern Territories. Of thousands who would burn cities at my command." Liana sat back on her heels. She looked at the broken windows. The cracked tile floor. The blankets she slept on. Then back at him. "Of course you are," she said. "Because my life wasn't weird enough." For the first time, his lips twitched. A real smile. Small, but real. Then he swayed. Liana lunged forward, catching him before he slumped. Hey, stay with me." His skin was colder now. His control was slipping. "I cannot hold the hunger much longer," he admitted, voice rougher, deeper. More dangerous. She could feel it in the air, something predatory waking up. Still, he turned his face away from her throat. "Take mine," she said quietly. His head snapped back toward her. His eyes were no longer silver. They were glowing faint red. "No. You'll die. I would rather die than harm you." Her chest tightened at the raw truth in his voice. "I'm not saying drain me," she said. "Just enough so you don't, you know. Go feral vampire king on the city." He actually huffed a weak breath that might have been a laugh. "You joke in the face of monsters." "I work customer service," she said. "Same thing." That did it. A low, broken sound escaped him, the closest thing to laughter he'd probably made in years. But then the hunger surged again. She saw his fangs lengthen. His hands trembled where they braced against the floor. "I don't want you to be scared of me," he said hoarsely. "I'm not," she replied. That was the part that shook him. Not bravery. Not defiance. Trust. She held out her arm. His control shattered. He grabbed her wrist, but gently, like she was made of glass. "Tell me to stop," he said, voice shaking. "At any moment." "Okay." His fangs pierced her skin. The pain was sharp but brief. Then warmth. Not just physical warmth, something deeper. A rush of energy, emotion, memory that didn't belong to her. She felt stone halls. Moonlit thrones. The weight of a crown. Betrayal. Loneliness that stretched for centuries. And under all of it, a heart that had forgotten how to hope. He pulled back quickly, horrified at himself. But Liana was still conscious. Still steady. Still looking at him like he wasn't a monster. His wound was already closing. Color returned to his face. "You stopped," she said softly. "Good. You trust too easily," he whispered. "No," she said. "I just know what it's like to be treated like you're not human." That hit him harder than any weapon. Before he could respond, headlights flashed through the cracks in the boarded windows. Engines. Multiple. He froze. "They found us," he said. Liana's heart pounded. "Those hunter guys?" "Yes." This time, when he stood, he didn't sway. Power rolled off him like a storm finally unleashed. His eyes glowed. His fangs gleamed. His voice was no longer weak. It was royal. Commanding. Ancient. "Stay behind me," the Vampire King said. Outside, doors slammed. Footsteps approached. Silver weapons clicked. And for the first time, Liana realized something terrifying. She hadn't just saved a vampire. She had saved a king. And now, anyone who wanted him dead would have to go through her. When a king unleashes his wrath. The laundromat had never felt smaller. Wind howled through cracks in the boarded windows as headlights sliced through the darkness outside. Shadows of men moved across the walls. Boots crunched on snow. Metal clicked. Weapons. Liana's breath came fast, but she didn't run. Because the man in front of her was no longer the wounded stranger from the bridge. He stood tall now. Still pale. Still cold. But no longer weak. Power radiated from him like heat from a fire, invisible but undeniable. His eyes glowed silver white, brighter than before. Ancient. Deadly. Royal. "Stay behind me," he repeated, his voice no longer strained. It carried authority that felt older than cities. Liana nodded and stepped back, though her heart hammered against her ribs. The front door of the laundromat exploded inward. Wood splintered. Snow and freezing wind rushed inside. 6 men stormed in wearing black tactical gear. Their movements were precise, practiced. Each carried weapons tipped with shining silver blades and strange glowing devices strapped to their arms. One of them smirked when he saw the vampire. Well, the leader said. "The Night King hiding in a dump. That's almost sad." Liana glanced at the man beside her. "Night King," she whispered. "Later," he said softly. The hunter's eyes shifted to Liana. "Step away from it, miss," he called. "That thing isn't human. We're here to protect people like you." Liana stepped closer to the vampire instead. "I think I'll pass." The hunter sighed. "They always say that. Then we find the bodies later." The vampire's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "You will not touch her." The men laughed. "Big mistake." One lunged forward with a silver blade. Liana barely saw the vampire move. 1 second he was beside her. The next, he was across the room. The hunter flew backward like he'd been hit by a truck, slamming into a washing machine hard enough to dent the metal. The others opened fire, not bullets, but thin silver darts that hissed through the air. The vampire moved faster than her eyes could track. He blurred. Dodged. Caught one dart midair and snapped it between his fingers. Another hunter charged from the side. The vampire grabbed him by the vest and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "I warned you," he said quietly. Then he threw the man through a boarded window. Wood shattered. Silence fell for half a second. Then chaos. 2 hunters rushed Liana. Before they could reach her, the vampire was back, fury in every movement. He didn't kill them. He disarmed them. Broke weapons. Knocked them unconscious with terrifying precision. Within seconds, 5 men were down. The leader remained. He wasn't afraid. He pulled a small device from his belt and pressed a button. A high-pitched frequency filled the room. Liana cried out, covering her ears. The vampire dropped to one knee, a snarl tearing from his throat. Smoke rose faintly from his skin. Ultraviolet emitter, the hunter said coldly. Specifically tuned for your kind. He stepped closer, raising a silver blade. End of the line, Your Majesty. Liana didn't think. She grabbed a broken metal pipe from the floor and ran at him. Hey! She swung. The pipe hit his arm hard enough to knock the device from his hand. It skidded across the floor and smashed against the wall. The sound stopped instantly. The hunter turned, furious. You stupid girl. He never finished. The vampire was in front of him. Eyes blazing. Fangs fully descended. Voice like thunder. You dared. The hunter tried to stab him. The blade never reached. The vampire caught his wrist and crushed the weapon in his grip like it was made of foil. I should end you, he said, deadly calm. The hunter's fear finally showed. But Liana's voice cut through the moment. Don't. The vampire froze. She stepped forward slowly, placing a hand on his arm. They're beaten. Let them go. The hunter stared at her like she was insane. The vampire stared at her like she was a miracle. They hunted you, he said quietly. They would have killed you to hurt me. I know, she said. But if you kill them, you become what they think you are. Silence stretched. Then slowly. The vampire king released the man. Leave, he commanded. The hunters didn't argue. They dragged their unconscious teammates and fled into the snow. The laundromat fell quiet again. Only the wind remained. Liana turned to the vampire. You okay? He was staring at her like she had just done the impossible. You stopped me, he said softly. You listened. No one commands a king, he said. No one, but you. Her cheeks warmed. I didn't command. I asked. That is why it worked. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. More humans coming. More danger. He stepped closer to her. We can't stay here, he said. They will return with more. Then where do we go? He looked toward the dark horizon. To my world. Liana blinked. Your vampire world? Yes. Is that safe? For you? His gaze softened. I will make it safe. She studied his face, the power, the control, the strange gentleness he only seemed to show her. Okay, she said. That single word hit him harder than any weapon that night. Trust. Again. He held out his hand. Stay with me, Liana. And no one will ever hurt you again. She placed her hand in his. Snow swirled outside. The human world faded behind them. And as the vampire king led a homeless girl into the shadows of his ancient kingdom, war quietly began. Because the hunters would not forget. And the enemies who betrayed him would soon learn. The king they tried to kill had found something worth fighting for. The human in the vampire court. The world didn't change all at once.
We have no choice.
It shifted. Like stepping through a thin place between realities. One moment, Liana stood in the frozen alley behind the laundromat, wind biting her cheeks. The next. The air was warmer. Still night. But different. The sky above was deeper, richer, painted with unfamiliar constellations. The city sounds were gone. No traffic. No sirens. Just silence. And a castle. It rose from the mountainside like it had grown from the stone itself. Black towers pierced the sky, their windows glowing faintly silver. Bridges arched between spires like threads of shadow. Liana's hand tightened in his. Okay, so, you weren't exaggerating. I rarely do, the Vampire King said gently. Guards appeared at the gates. Not human. Their eyes glowed faintly. Their movements were too smooth, too precise. They froze when they saw him. Then dropped to one knee. My king. Their gazes shifted to Liana. Confusion. Shock. Disapproval. He felt it. His jaw tightened. This is Liana, he said. She is under my protection. That was not how vampire royalty introduced someone. But it was how he chose to. The gates opened. Inside, the castle was both beautiful and intimidating. Marble floors. Silver chandeliers. Walls carved with ancient symbols. Vampires lined the corridors as they walked. Whispers followed. A human. Why would he bring her here? After the betrayal? He trusts a human. Liana heard it all. She kept walking. Head up. Even though her shoes were still worn and her coat still too thin. At the top of a grand staircase, a woman waited. Tall. Elegant. Dressed in crimson silk. Her beauty was sharp, like a blade pretending to be silk. Her eyes landed on Liana with immediate dislike. My king, she said smoothly, bowing her head just enough to show respect but not submission. You survived. Clearly, he replied coolly. Her gaze flicked to Liana again. And you brought a souvenir? Liana flinched. The king didn't. She saved my life, he said. His voice held steel now. Watch your tone, Lady Seraphine. Ah. Jealous court lady. Classic. Seraphine smiled, but her eyes hardened. Of course, Your Majesty. We are all grateful. No, she wasn't. Liana could feel it. The king turned to Liana. His expression softened immediately. You are tired, he said. You need rest. Food. Warmth. Seraphine's brow lifted slightly. You would house a human in the royal wing? I would, he said. And I will. The message was clear. Anyone who disrespected Liana, disrespected the king. Servants led Liana to a massive bedroom with velvet curtains, a fireplace, and a bed bigger than her entire old sleeping corner. She just stood there. I think I'm scared to sit on anything, she whispered. The king almost smiled. You belong here, he said. She looked at him. No one had ever said those words to her before. Not once. I don't know how to be, whatever this is, she admitted. You don't have to, he said. Just be Liana. A knock came at the door. One of the guards entered, bowing. My king, the council requests your presence immediately. They are not pleased. Of course they weren't. A vampire king had nearly died. Now he returned with a human girl at his side. Political chaos. Perfect. I will come, he said. He hesitated before leaving, looking at Liana like he didn't want to. You are safe here, he promised. She nodded. Go be king. I'll try not to break anything. He left. The warmth in the room faded slightly without him. Hours later, Liana wandered the halls, unable to sleep. That's when she heard voices. Angry ones. A human in the palace is an insult. She will weaken him. She could be a spy. Liana froze outside the council chamber doors. Then she heard his voice. Calm. Cold. Absolute. She is under my protection. She is human, another voice hissed. They age. They die. They betray. She did not betray, he said. She saved me when my own kind tried to kill me. Silence followed. Then someone said quietly, "You are attached." A long pause. Then his voice, softer but more dangerous than any shout. "Yes." Liana's breath caught. Inside the chamber, ancient vampires realized something terrifying. Their king, who had ruled with logic and distance for centuries, now had a heart someone could target. And enemies would. The world he would burn. Liana should have known peace wouldn't last. The castle was too quiet that evening. Too still. Even the servants moved with tension in their shoulders, their eyes flicking toward the windows as if expecting something to crash through them. She stood on a balcony overlooking the dark mountains, wrapped in a cloak someone had left for her. Warm. Soft. Still unfamiliar. Footsteps approached behind her. Not his. She turned. Lady Seraphine stood in the doorway, elegant as ever, red gown whispering across the floor. "You shouldn't wander alone," Seraphine said lightly. Liana gave a small shrug. "I get lost in castles instead of streets now." Still an upgrade. Seraphine's lips curved, but there was no humor in it. "Do you know what you've done? Helped someone who was hurt? You destabilized a kingdom," Seraphine said. "Our enemies smell weakness. And you, little human, are the sweetest weakness of all." Liana's stomach tightened. Before she could respond, a horn blasted through the night. Low. Ancient. A warning. The castle shook. Guards shouted in the distance. Seraphine's expression changed, not to fear, but to something like grim satisfaction. "They've come," she murmured. "Who?" "The ones who betrayed your king." Liana's heart pounded as chaos erupted below. From the mountains, shadows moved, dozens, maybe hundreds. Red eyes glowed in the dark like a field of embers. An invading vampire faction. War had arrived at the gates. Guards rushed past the hall. One stopped short when he saw Liana. "Get her to safety," he barked. Too late. A blur shot from the shadows of the corridor. A vampire, not one of theirs. Eyes wild. Smile cruel. "Well," he said, grabbing Liana before she could scream, "this must be the human." He dragged her back, fangs grazing her throat. "Don't move," he shouted as guards froze. "Or she dies." The temperature in the castle seemed to drop. Then came a voice. Quiet. Deadly. "Release her." The crowd parted. The king walked forward. Not rushed. Not frantic. Controlled fury. His eyes burned like twin stars. The enemy vampire laughed. "Or what? You'll risk war for livestock?" The king's voice echoed through the stone halls. "I will end your entire bloodline." The vampire hesitated, just a fraction. Liana spoke, voice shaking but clear. "Don't start a war because of me." His gaze flicked to her, and in it she saw something deeper than power. Fear. Not for himself. For her. "You are not the cause," he said softly. "You are the reason." Then he moved. Faster than sight. 1 second Liana was in the enemy's grip. The next, she was in the king's arms, pulled safely against his chest. The attacker hit the wall across the hall so hard the stone cracked. Silence fell. The king stood in the center of the corridor, Liana in his arms, enemies at the gates. His voice rolled through the castle and out into the night like thunder. "You came for my throne." His eyes dropped to Liana, gentle for just a heartbeat. "Now you face my wrath." He handed her to the guards carefully, like she was something sacred. Then he turned. And the monster the world feared finally stepped forward. The battle was fast. Brutal. One-sided. Not because of numbers. Because of him. The Vampire King did not fight like a man. He fought like a force of nature. Enemies fled. Those who stayed fell. By dawn, the mountains were silent again. The castle stood. His kingdom stood. And every vampire there understood one thing with crystal clarity. The human girl was not a weakness. She was the line no one could cross and live. Sunrise morning in the aftermath. Lyanna sat wrapped in blankets near the great hall fire when he finally returned. Blood stained his coat. None of it hers. He knelt in front of her, eyes searching her face. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. He closed his eyes in relief, a king, bowing his head to a homeless girl who once slept on tile floors. "You shouldn't have risked everything," she whispered. "I didn't risk everything," he said. "I protected what matters." She studied him. "Why me?" His answer was simple. "You saw me when I was nothing but a dying stranger in the snow, and you chose kindness." His hand found hers. "In a world that fears power, you chose compassion. That is rarer than immortality." Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. "So, what happens now?" He stood and helped her up. "Now," the Vampire King said, voice warm for the first time, "the court will learn to respect their future queen." Lyanna blinked. "Whoa, wait." He almost smiled. "I told you," he said softly, "the world made a mistake the night you saved me." Outside, the sun rose over the mountains. Inside, a king who had ruled for centuries without love finally had something stronger than a throne. And he would protect it. Even if he had to burn the world to do it. Drop of blood, the end. Drop of blood.